Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to another episode of the HMO Property Show and another episode of Quote Vault. Today's quote is "You become part of what you're around" by the man himself, Mr. Zig Ziglar, and it fits in nicely with one of my favourite phrases, proximity is power.
What I'm really saying is that Charles Dickens many years ago said that no one is useless in this world of ours who lightens the load of it for somebody else. When you're doing something for somebody else, you are performing a useful service and you're going to feel better about yourself. Help somebody, because it's impossible to row somebody across the river without going over there yourself. Yes, you can get everything in life you want, if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And then the next step to building a good, healthy self-image is be careful of whom you associate with. Here a few months ago there in Dallas, Texas, an associate of mine and I were on our way down to close by city. We stopped in the cafeteria to catch a bite to eat. As we walked down the line, I, years ago, started saying something to every person in a cafeteria line. When my youngest daughter was 16 years old, the only job she could get was at a cafeteria, and I really got a lot of insight into what goes on in cafeterias. So I made a determination that I would never go down the line again without saying something to the people who were there. Well, the guy in front of me apparently had the same thought in mind, because he was talking to the lady as I came into view, and I don't know what he said, but she responded by saying, "Yes, this has been one of those days." And I looked at her and I kind of grinned. I said, "Yes, it has been absolutely fantastic, hasn't it?" And she looked at me and she said, "You have been out in the sun too long." And I said, "No, I haven't been out in the sun, but I have been overseas. And I've seen the way much of the rest of this world lives. And I happen to know that there are millions and millions of people who would love, dearly love, to change places with you. You're young. You're attractive, you've got a job, you've got your health, you've got a nice place to work, you've got a future, and you live in America, which means that your opportunity is in your own hands." I said, "Now that you've thought about all of that, you do feel better, don't you?" She said, "You are sick." I never dented her at all. You know, they say a message goes around the world 24,000 miles in less than a second, but sometimes it takes years to go that last 1/4 of an inch. I made no progress whatever with that dear lady. We went on and sat down and were having our lunch, and a little lady about 70, maybe even 75 years old came by serving the extra tea. And so I said, "How you doing?" And she looked at me, most beautiful grin I think I have ever seen. And she reached over and she kind of touched me on the shoulder and she said, "Honey, if it is any better, I think the deck was stacked." Now I said, "Why don't you go talk to those ladies on the serving line?" And her response was instant. "Oh, no," she said, "never, never, never." She said, "If I spend the time with them, I'd be just like they are." Now, I don't know how many psychology books she's been reading, but she's right on, absolutely on the button. You become part of what you are around. If you want to be a winner, you make it your business to get around winners. You're what you are and where you are because of what's gone in your mind. Winners are going to put the right thing in your mind. If you want to lose and keep on losing, you just get around the gripers and the complainers and the bellyachers and let them talk to you enough about inflation and the high interest rate and all of the troubles that they they are having, and let them dump the garbage in and dump the garbage in. And I can guarantee you it's just a question of time before you buy what they're selling. If you want to build that image you associate with winners, I think the classic example about how we become part of what we're around has to do with the example, and most of you have heard it, how you can take a southern boy or girl and send them up north or out west, and it's just a question of time before they'll pick up an accent. I figured most of you would notice that, okay? Or you can reverse it. You can take a northern or western boy or girl and send them into the south, and pretty soon we'll have them talking normally. Now, there are a lot of people who think losing is normal. It is not. That is a departure from the norm. Winning is the normal thing. And I'm going to tell you, you associate wherever you go with winners, and that's absolutely the way to become a winner. The next step to building a good, healthy self-image is you need to get a card out, or probably take a sheet of paper and list all of the positive qualities that you have about yourself. So you got to make a decision. Am I for me or am I against me? You got to make that decision. Now, let me give you some things that you can list as being good qualities. If you're honest, write it down. I'm honest. If you have character, write it down. I have a strong character. If you have integrity, write it down. I have integrity. If you're faithful, write down. I am faithful. If you're loyal, write it down. I'm loyal. If you're dependable, if you show up on appointments and for work on time, write it down. If you're persistent, if you hang in there, write it down. If you're enthusiastic, write it down. If you're optimistic, write it down. If you really love people, write it down. If you really care about our country, write it down. If you really are willing to make a contribution, write it down. When you take inventory of all of your assets, ladies and gentlemen, they're enormous. List your positive qualities. And then if you ever have a little down moment, you simply get those positive qualities out and say, hey, I'm honest and I have character and integrity and faith and love and loyalty and I'm dependable. Read them out. And then you got to be able to say, hey, I can't be all bad if I've got all of these qualities. Want to build a healthy self-image? Why don't you make a list of all of the victories you've enjoyed in your lifetime? If you passed a course which they said you could not pass, why don't you write it down? If one time you defended a youngster from getting beaten up by the school bully, write it down. All of your victories, you need to list them. Whatever your victories are, you need to write them down over and over and over. You see, if you want to be a winner, then you got to concentrate on the things that you've been winning at.
There you have it, team. You become part of What You're Around by Zig Ziglar. Join us again next week on the HMO Property Show. And remember, every master was once a disaster. Every winner was once a beginner.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.